Conveyancing, put simply, is the legal process of transferring property from one owner to another. In any conveyancing transaction, the seller and the buyer will usually appoint their own legal representation, whether that be a firm of solicitors or a firm of licensed conveyancers. It's up to the seller's lawyers and the buyer's lawyers to then complete the legal work necessary to get through to the ultimate aim, exchange of contracts. Once exchange of contracts happens, the transaction is legally binding and the moving date is fixed. The moving date is also known as the completion date. Before exchange of contracts can happen, there is a lot of work to do. The buyer's conveyancer has to check that the seller has the right to sell the property and that the boundaries of the property match what the buyer is expecting. The buyer's conveyancer will also check many other elements, like whether planning permission's been obtained for any alterations to the property, whether there are any rights of way needed to access the property, or if there's any restrictions on how the buyer could use the property in future. It's the seller's conveyancer's role to evidence the seller's ownership to the buyer's conveyancer and to answer these questions that the buyer's conveyancer may have. The buyer's conveyancer will also obtain and check the local and drainage searches to the property and will make sure that the buyer has sufficient funds to purchase the property by ensuring that they've got the mortgage offer in place before proceeding. The respective lawyers will find out when the seller and buyer would like to move, and this becomes the agreed completion date. Once exchange of contracts takes place, that date is then legally binding. When the completion date arrives, the buyer's conveyancer transfers the purchase monies to the seller's conveyancer by an electronic bank transfer. Once received, the seller's conveyancer will call the estate agents to let them know that the transaction is completed and keys can be released to the buyer. The seller's conveyancer will usually settle the estate agent's fees and pay their own invoice before transferring any remaining balance to the seller. The buyer's conveyancer will pay any stamp duty land tax that's owing and then register the buyer's ownership at the land registry.